This week, I have decided to share something different. Sometimes you have an experience that makes you stop and think. An experience that makes you question your own beliefs. An experience that makes you question your own choices. That happened to me recently when I watched the documentary Here and There about the American filmmaker Ken Burns. If you don't know Ken Burns, let me explain. Ken Burns is an American filmmaker who has dedicated his life to making documentaries about American history, including the Vietnam War, country music, baseball, and the national parks. Ken is a legend when it comes to making documentaries, and he has won many awards. This latest documentary is not about American history, it's about Ken Burns himself and his life as a filmmaker. Let me share a bit of Ken's story and explain why his choices made me stop and think. Let's go back in time. Ken Burns graduated from film school in the 70s. After film school, he started working on a documentary about the Brooklyn Bridge. At the time, Ken was living in a small apartment on the 5th floor of a building in Manhattan, New York. The monthly rental was $275. One day the landlord showed up, knocked the door and said, "Mr. Burns, the rental is going up to $325 per month." Ken didn't have that kind of money. To afford the higher rental, he had to get a real job, but that meant he had to stop making that important documentary about the Brooklyn Bridge. Ken realized this was a life-defining moment. If he took that real job, he might wake up one day, 50 years old, and realize that he had not made that important movie. So what did he do? Ken really wanted to finish that movie, but New York was clearly too expensive. In August 1979, Ken and his girlfriend found a house in a small town called Walpole, New Hampshire. That little town had a bit more than 3,000 people. Very different from New York. Ken managed to finish the documentary about the Brooklyn Bridge, and it was nominated for an Academy Award. Then the phone started ringing, and many people were asking Ken to move to either New York or LA, the two big movie cities. What did Ken do? He decided to stay in Walpole. Instead of moving to New York or LA, he set up his base in Walpole, where he continued to grow his company, Florentine Films, with some other friends. Being in a small town like Walpole allowed Ken and the team to focus and do labor-intensive work without the usual distractions and influences from the film industry. A Ken Burns documentary like the Vietnam War can take more than 10 years to make. They are big projects, and Ken, he likes to go deep on these topics. Many documentaries later, Ken is thriving in Walpole, enjoying the town and the close community. Together with his team, Ken has continued to deliver epic documentaries. While Ken is 67 years old, he's not about to retire. He has agreed with PBS that he will continue to make documentaries until 2030. So what's the point? Before I watched this documentary about Ken Burns, I actually thought he lived in LA or New York. And I had never heard about Walpole, New Hampshire. Have you? So why did this documentary make me revisit my own choices? 3 things. Number 1, community. Instead of moving to a big city like other people in the film industry, Ken moved to a small town and created his own community. Number 2, instead of chasing short-term goals, Ken is doing long-term projects that are big, take years, and allow him and the team to go deep. Number 3, environment. Instead of working in a hectic studio office space, Ken has created a space that allows his team to do deep work without the usual distractions or influences. So what? I have watched the documentary twice and I'm still thinking about it. Why? Because the three things I shared with you are basically the opposite of what I've been doing and what most other people are doing. Sometimes I think it can be helpful to just stop and ask yourself, what would happen if I did the opposite of what I'm currently doing? What would happen if I did the opposite of what I'm currently doing? Do I have an answer yet? No, but thinking about it can be a helpful process. Should you watch the documentary here and there about Ken Burns? That depends. If you like Ken Burns or you're into documentaries, absolutely. Also, I think most of us could actually benefit from a trip to Walpole, New Hampshire. It will help you slow down and it will make you think. That's it. My name is Thomas Bay. I'll be back next week with another video on innovation. Until then, make things better and make better things. Boom!